An International Development Job Guide. Chapter 1. An International Development Job Guide. Work for an international development company or international non-profit corporation. International development is about the well-being and improvement of quality of life for people. Many countries have international development and cooperation agencies. IGOs are international governmental organizations like the United Nations, NATO, WHO and others that were developed by a conglomeration of countries to serve a worldwide function that goes beyond the jurisdiction of just one country. The way international organizations work is that they usually hire people who live wherever their headquarters is located and send them overseas to do the job, but this is not etched in stone. Your best bet is to look for international organizations located in your country, probably Canada or the US. Get any job with them even if it means working in your home country for a while. Then after you've proven yourself, ask for a foreign transfer. Many Canadian and American organizations that you might think are just limited to their home countries have involvements and offices overseas, which is why you should investigate the organizations in your field to see if they operate in foreign countries. Contact them and ask if they have any job openings or ask what kind of credentials they want. If you belong to a trade/professional organization, ask them if they have an international section or any leads for an international job. They can usually help you out. Many countries do not have modern buildings, modern electrical plants, water supply companies, broadband infrastructure, roads, telephone lines, TV stations, sewage plants, etc. There are probably several million jobs in a foreign country for a skilled hands-on worker in any of these fields. People who hire these workers are foreign governments, for-profit companies, non-profit organizations/NGOs, United Nations. There are companies that fulfill project requirements sponsored by national governments. The areas can include agriculture, democracy and governance, economic growth and trade, environment, education and training, global health, humanitarian assistance, gender equality, disaster preparedness, national agencies and intergovernmental organizations. Here are a few examples. International Development Association, IDA, World Bank, U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, Australian Agency for International Development, AUSAID, Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, UK Department for International Development, DFID, Asia Development Bank, United Nations Development Programme, African Development Bank, Foreign Policy Association Global Job Board, DevEx Job Search, Idealist.org Jobs, USAID Internships, World Neighbors, International Development Exchange, Canadian International Development Agency Programs Index, UK Department for International Development What We Do, Development Experience Clearinghouse, DIS, at USAID, Australian Council for International Development, Public Radio International, PRI Global Health and Development, Columbia School of International and Public Affairs. If you want to work at a development organization, you should speak the local language to some extent. You'll probably have to pay the travel costs to get there. Get the right paperwork through their Immigration Customs Department. You have to get visas and paperwork on residency and taxation. International non-profits may be your best bet for finding work abroad over traditional for-profit companies. Build an international CV or resume by saying why you want to work in a foreign country to help people. Don't neglect the logistics. It's a big change. There are squat toilets in many countries unlike sit-down toilets. People get homesick. Get a degree in either business, public or international administration. Major international development job websites. Do a search on a major search engine using phrases such as International Development Country Name, acdivoca.org, americares.org/about-us/jobs, amnesty.org, arcrelief.org, American Refugee Committee, asiafoundation.org, asiasociety.org, awidi.org, Association for Women's Rights in Development, bond.org.uk/jobs, Bond for International Development, cafod.org.uk, Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, care.org, carnegiecouncil.org, Carnegie Council for Ethics in International Affairs, catholicrelief.org, cedpa.org, Center for Development and Population Activities, CESR.org, Center for Economic and Social Rights, CFR.org, Council on Foreign Relations, China Development Brief.cn, civicus.org, comminute.com, Communication Initiative, comminute.com/ci-classifieds, concernusa.org, demos.org, developmentaid.org, doctorswithoutborders.org, equalitynow.org, facebook.com/pages/unicef-jobs, FAO.org, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, financialaccess.org, fordfoundation.org, International Development Job Websites 1. abroadstudies.org/international_jobs/international-organization-jobs.html, american.edu/ted/hopages/jobs/jobs2.htm, International Affairs Jobs page, International. answers.com/topic/international-organization-1. contipress.ch, Internships, volunteer positions with international organizations jobs. crisisgroup.org, International Crisis Group. developments.org.uk, magazine. eda.admin.ch/eda/home/dfa/jobs/jobnt.html, fpa.org, Foreign Policy Association. freedomhouse.org, globalfocus.org.nz, Global Public Service links. gov.uk/government/organizations/department-for-international-development, UK Department for International Development. halotrust.org, hki.org, Helen Keller International. hrw.org, Human Rights Watch. iadb.org/vacancies_scholarships/index.cfm?lang=n, Inter-American Development Bank. iaea.org/about/jobs/index.html, International Atomic Energy Agency. icao.int, International Civil Aviation Organization. icsc.un.org, International Civil Service Commission. ifc.org/careers/html/internship, International Finance Corporation. ifrc.org, International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. ilo.org. ilo.org, International Labour Organization. ilo.org, International Labour Organization. imf.org, International Monetary Fund. imf.org/external/np/rec/jobo/ppo.htm, International Monetary Fund HQ in Washington. careers.un.org, the United Nations. international-jobs.org, International Medical Corps.org, intjobs.org, intlcenter.wordpress.com, International Center in New York. iom.int, International Organization for Migration. epinst.org, International Peace Institute. iso.org, International Organization for. itu.int, International Telecommunication Union. job-hunt.org/international.shtml, jobs.un.org/galaxy/release3/vacancy/vacancy.aspx, United Nations Human Resources. jobs.undp.org/cj_view_jobs.cfm, United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. kazanow.com. mercycorps.org. missions.itu.in/Italy/vacancies/va-clinks.htm. ndi.org, National Democratic Institute. nextbillion.net. ngoabroad.com. oas.org, Organization of American States. okchar.org/en/about-us/pages/work-study-opportunities.aspx, High Commissioner for Human Rights. okchar.org/english, Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. OCR. OpenSocietyFoundations.org. Organization Jobs. Oxfam.org. PeaceBrigades.org. PeaceCorps.gov. RedCross.org. RI.org. RI.org, Relief International. RileyGuide.com/internet.html. Selectory.com, International Companies Database for a fee. SIDW.org, Society for International Development. Standardization. state.gov/p/io/empl. Synergos.org, Synergos Institute. tcf.org, The Century Foundation. theirc.org/jobs, International Rescue Committee. Transparency.org. TrickleUp.org. International Development Job Websites 2. un.org/departments/orm, United Nations Internship Program. unowds.org, Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS. unowza.org, United Nations Association of the United States. uncdf.org, United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF. undp.org/jobs. unfpa.org/about/employment/index.htm, United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. unicef.org/about/employ/index.html, United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. unjobs.org. unops.org. unwomen.org. usaid.gov, United States Agency for International Development. wagner.nyu.edu/global/links. wfp.org, World Food Programme. wfpg.org, Women's Foreign Policy Group. who.in/n, World Health Organization. workabroadblog.com/p=69. worldbank.org/website/external/exthr jobs, The World Bank in Washington, D.C. worldrelief.org. International Development Job Websites 3. devnetjobs.org, International Development, NGO, NGOs, Jobs, UNDP, World Bank. devdir.org, lists 50,000 organizations. cid.harvard.edu, Center for International Development. devdir.org. developmentbookshop.com. developmentmarketplace.org. enterprise-development.org. guidastar.org. idealist.org. mdgs.un.org. microfinancegateway.org. microlinks.kdid.org. ruralfinance.org. seepnetwork.org. wbcsd.org/web/devguide.htm. yearofmicrocredit.org. International Development Job Websites 4. a4id.org/jobs-internships. abtassociation.com/html. academicinvest.com/international development studies careers. acdi-cida.gc.ca, Canadian International Development. actafrica.org, the Alliance for Community Transformation is a non-governmental, not-for-profit organization. actionappointments.co.za, development recruitment, South Africa jobs4development.com aec.msu.edu/fs2/papers/idwp86.pdf, MSU International Development Working Paper aecom.jobs aidboard.com aidboard.com/international-development-job-websites aidsconsortium.org.uk, the UK Consortium on AIDS and International Development. AL Development Work. awd.org/jobs/jobs.html, Association for Women in Development. Bido.org, Bay Area International Development Organizations. bidnetwork.org. bond.org.uk/jobs. britishcouncil.org/partners/international-development. ca.indeed.com/international-development-jobs. cadec.ca, Association of International Development. calvin.edu/majors-minors/international development studies. cambridgedata.com, International Economic and Social Development. assortes.com, services to companies active in the international Canada. careerbuilder.com/jobs/keywords/international-development. careercenter.umd.edu/crws/in-servicework.asp. careerjet.com USA Jobs. careernation.com, Africa. careers.un.org. careersunited.org. cdsintl.org, a non-profit organization that administers trainee exchanges, internships and work/study programs for college students. cgdev.org/page/job-opportunities-0. charityjob.co.uk. charityjob.co.uk/jobs/international+development. charityvillage.com/directories/organizations-i-z. cid.harvard.edu, Center for International Development at Harvard University. cmi.no. coffee.com/en/expertise/industry/international-development. crcid.org, Canadian Rotary Committee for International Development. crediel.qc.ca, Regional Education for International Development, French. dai.com/working-die/job-opportunities. Development Aid Field. Development Jobs. developmentex.com, International Development Jobs. development-jobs.org. developmentworker.com. International Development Job Websites 5. devex.com, Development Executive. devex.com/jobs. devj.net. devj.org. devjobsmail.com. devjobsmail.com/index.html, international. devnetjobs.org. devnetjobs.org, International Job Listings for Environment, Development, and Consulting Jobs. devnetjobs.org/search_jobs.aspx. devnetjobs.tripod.com. devnetjobsindia.org. dfid.gov.uk, Department for International Development. dfid.gov.uk, FID, UK Department for International Development. ecaterare.org.uk. edc.org/about/careers. edc.org/international. eldis.org/go/jobs. eldis.org/go/jobs/job-websites-and-consultants. eldis.org/news/jobs.htm. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/development_workshop, a non-profit organization providing assistance for poor and disadvantaged communities in the developing countries. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/international_development. ingiliticorp.com/international development. ethicalJobs.com.au/international-aid-development-jobs. ethnicnow.com. facebook.com/devnetjobs. fas.usda.gov about FOS careers. Finding Dulcinea.com/guides/international-development-work.html. fpa.org/jobs_contact2423/jobs_contact.htm, Foreign Policy Association. fpaid.org.nz, Family Planning Association, FPA, International Development. genevajobs.org. glassdoor.com jobs. glassdoor.com salaries. globaljobs.org. globalservicecorps.org/site/international-development-work. globalservicecorpsorg.zcwd.com. Government UK/Department for International Development. guardian-weekly.com/int_dev. hoovers.com/global/employment. iadb.org/en/careers. icfi.com/careers/hot-jobs/in-international-development. IDE.org, International Development Enterprises, helps third world entrepreneurs. ideasworld.org, International Development and Educational Associates. IDE-INTERNATIONAL.org, working towards sustainable economic development and poverty alleviation. IDEORG.org, International Development Enterprises. IDE-UK.org. IDEX.org, International Development Exchange. idirect.ca/Hope International Development Agency, Water Projects and Agriculture in Poor Countries. idrc.ca, International Development Research Centre, Canada. idrc.org, International Development Research Council. idrc.org.sg/n, International Development. idrf.ca, International Development and Relief Foundation. iedconline.org/web-pages/professional-development/job-listings. ifsw.org, the International Federation of. iie.org/en/careers. International Development Job Websites 6. Indeed.ae/international-development-jobs-in-Dubai. Indeed.co.uk/international-development-jobs. Indeed.co.uk/international-development-jobs-in-London. Indeed.co.za/international-development-jobs. Indeed.com, International Development. Indeed.com/q-international-development-jobs.html. Indeed.com/q-international-L-Washington-DC-jobs.html. Interaction.org/careers-international-development. international.gc.ca/development-develop-payment/jobs-emp-lois. international.ucla/idps/ids/article.asp?@8363, study international development. internationaljobs.com. internationaljobs.org. internationaljobs.org/developmentjobs.html. internationaljobs.org/hotpda.html. internationalservice.org.uk. iswd.org, International Social Work. jobs.ac.uk/jobs/international-activities. jobs.gardenlive.info/international-development-. jobs.theguardian.com/jobs/international-development. jobs.theguardian.com/jobs/international-development-1/Europe. jobs.thirdsector.co.uk/jobs/international-development. jobs.undp.org. jobs.undp.org. jobs4development.com. jobs4development.com, International Development Jobs. jobs4development.com/jobs. landolakes.org. anywint.org, International Development. nyu.edu/career development/students/global_resources. nz.indeed.com/agency-for-international-development-jobs. nz.indeed.com/international-development-jobs. oecd.org. oneta1job.com/jobs-internships/international-development. oneworld.org/jobs. overseasjobs.com, Overseas Jobs, Directory of International Job Listing Sites. palgrave-usa.com, Development, Journal of the Society for International Development. plan-international.org, Helps Children. protiverse.co.uk. protiverse.net. proposalwriter.com/intemployment.html. qa.indeed.com/international-development-jobs-in-Doha. qeh.ox.ac.uk, Development Studies, Oxford. reliefweb.int. reliefweb.int/jobs. rti.org. sais-jhu.edu/content/international-development. seva.ca, International Development. simplyhired.com/jobs/list/q-international+development. simplyhired.com/k-international-development-jobs.html. state.gov/documents/organization/207726.pdf. steinhart.nyu.edu/humsocci/international/jobs. sussex.ac.uk/cdec/int_dev.php. tetratech.com/en/international-development. thehumanitariansite.org. tradecraft.co.uk/international_development. transitionsabroad.com. uk.oneworld.net/jobs. unv.org, United Nations Volunteers. International Development Job Websites 7. usaid.gov. usaid.gov/about/employment, U.S. citizens can apply for jobs or internships with the U.S. Agency for International Development. usaid.gov/careers, United States Agency for International Development. usaid.gov/work-with-us/careers/vacancy-announcements. usjournal.com, focus on international development studies in Michigan, USA. utc.utoronto.ca/ids, co-op program in international development studies. vcn.bc.ca/idra, International Development Education Resource Association, lend films and believe native cultures should make their own films, have internship programs. vso.org.uk, volunteering to fight global poverty. waterforpeople.org. waw.be/sid, Society for International Development. workcopolis.com/job-search/international-development-jobs. worldbank.org/ida. worldbank.org/ida, International Development Association. wse.org.uk, World Service Inquiry, International Development, Jobs, and Volunteer. wse.org.uk/work/job.htm. International Development Job Websites 8. idealist.org/info/intl volunteer/getting ready. idealist.org/info/intl volunteer/no. idealist.org. idealistcareers.org. idealistas.org, Spanish, shares jobs in Spanish-speaking countries. idealiste.org, French, shares jobs in francophone countries. jobseekersadvice.com/main/working_abroad.htm internationalcenter.umich.edu/swt/work, University of Michigan. workingworldcareers.com. idealistcareers.org/nonprofit-jobs-global. reliefweb.int. jobs.un.org. oneworld.net/jobs. acre-resources.co.uk/csr-n-sustainabilityjobs.php. ecojobs.com. ecoemploy.com. greenjobs.com. envirolink.org. sustainablebusiness.com/jobs. jobs.treehugger.com. jobs.greenbiz.com. greenenergyyjobs.com. monstertrack.monster.com. environmentalcareer.com. aidboard.com/international-development-job-websites, list of international development job websites. aidboard.com/international-development-job-websites. aidboard.com. unjobs.org, UN jobs job vacancies in United Nations and international organizations. reliefweb.int, reliefweb. devnetjobs.org, devnetjobs. ngojobsinfo.blogspot.nl, ngojobs vacancies. jobs4development.com, jobs for development. ngojobs.in, ngojobs. careers.un.org, United Nations Careers. idealist.org, idealist. genevajobs.org, Geneva Jobs, jobs and consulting opportunities arising within the international development sector in Geneva, Switzerland and Europe. devex.com, devex, international development. eurobrussels.com, Eurobrussels, European Affairs job website. unv.org, United Nations Volunteers. policyjobs.net, policy jobs, policy-making jobs around the world. charityjob.co.uk, charity job, UK. jobs.euracetive.com, Euroactive job site, jobs in Brussels and EU affairs. ngojobsonline.com, NGO Hobsonline, NGO jobs. ethicaljobs.net, ethical jobs around the world. hasesfalta.org, Hasesfalta, Spanish website with volunteering and NGO jobs from the Spanish world. ngopulse.org/group/home-page/vacancies, NGO Pulse vacancies, NGO jobs from South Africa. unjobfinder.org. developmentaid.org. ngobox.org, Sort of India/South Asia specific for jobs. smanpower.com. smanpower.com/overseas-manpower-recruitment-agency.html. nuvo.co.in/n, find jobs in US, India as well as in many other countries. a-id.org. humanrightscarers.com. uncareer.net. Chapter 2. International Development Job Organizations and Resources. International Development Job Organizations. International Development Cooperation Agency. 320 21st St. Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20523. 202-647-1850. info.usaid.gov. Federal Government Agency, Jobs to Help Poor People Build Houses, etc. International Development Intern Program. Recruitment Staff, FSP/RSS. Agency for International Development. Washington, D.C. 20523-0114. USAID.gov. Federal Government Agency, Jobs to Help Natives. Agency for International Development. 320 21st St. Northwest. Number 1200. Washington, D.C. 20523. 703-875-1551. Fax, 703-875-1862. USAID.gov. Canadian International Development Agency. 5th FL. Place du Centre. 200 Promenade du Portage. Hull, QCK1A0G4. 800-230-6349. 819-997-5006. Fax, 819-953-6088. info@acdi-cida.gc.ca. acdi-cida.gc.ca. acdi-cida.gc.ca, Canadian International Development Agency Youth Internship Program. Canadian Government Non-Profit Agency. International Development Job Resources. American Humanics, Inc. 4601 Madison Avenue, KC, Missouri 64112. 800-343-6466. 816-561-6415. Fax, 816-531-3527. Humanics.org. Free booklet Make Your Mark on the World about Nonprofit Careers. Chronicles of Higher Education. 1255 23rd St. Northwest. Number 700. 202-466-1000. Chronicle.com. chronicle.merit.edu/ads/links. Ads for universities, foundations, and associations. Chronicle of Philanthropy. Pog 1989. Marion, Ohio 43304. 800-347-6969. College of Professional Studies. Institute for Nonprofit Organization Management. U. of San Francisco. 4306 Geary Boulevard. Number 201. San Francisco, California 94118. 415-750-5180. 800-281-5180. cps.usfca.edu/fundraising. Several degrees in nonprofit administration, some by correspondence. Community jobs. Nonprofit sector. 1001 Connecticut Avenue, NW. CommunityJobs.org. Newspaper. Interaction, American Council for Voluntary International Action. 1717 Massachusetts Avenue, NW. 8th FL. 202-667-8227. Coalition of Nonprofit Organizations for Overseas Employment. They publish a bi-weekly called Monday Developments. National Center for Careers in Public Life. 1225 15th TNW. Washington, D.C. 20005. 202-232-6800. Public Allies Jobs Program for Young People. Nonprofit Management Program of Judaism. 15600 Mulholland Drive, Bel Air, California 90077. 310-476-9777. uj.edu. Peace Corps. 806 Connecticut Avenue, NW. Number 301. Washington, D.C. 20526. 800-424-8580. peacecorps.gov. If you want to volunteer to work overseas, call them. There is a money allowance and resettlement stipend when you return. Peace Corps Returned Volunteer Services. Office. 1990 KSST. NW. Number 7660. 202-606-3126. Help returned volunteers find jobs. Publish bi-weekly bulletin called Hotline, a bulletin of opportunities for returned Peace Corps volunteers. Roll call. 900 2nd St. Northeast, Washington, D.C. 20002. 202-289-4900. Political Nonprofit Jobs. Taft Group. 12300 Twin Brook Parkway. Number 450. Rockville, Maryland 20852. 301-816-0210. 800-877-8238. Monthly newsletters, corporate giving watch and non-profit executive geared for managerial/public relations type jobs, also the National Directory of Nonprofit Organizations and several other nonprofit job-finding books. The Nation. POG 10791. Des Moines, Iowa 50347. 212-242-8400. TheNation.com.